Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, repeat.
And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. In AD 31, 3.5 years after his baptism, our Lord was crucified. With the great sacrifice offered upon Calvary, ended the system of offerings which for 4,000 years had pointed forward to the Lamb of God. Type had met antitype, and all the sacrifices and oblations of the ceremony system were there to cease.
So this video is going to be unique to most of the things that I have done so far. This video, I'm not actually using the Bible. And the reason for it is because people just don't believe the Bible. They have their own interpretation of it. It doesn't matter what the Bible says. So I'm actually bringing something today to the table that is just going to hopefully awaken Seventh Day Adventists to know that they need to believe the Bible and understand what it says and not just spiritualize away all the meanings of the plain "thus saith the Lord" in the Bible. If something doesn't make sense, it's not that you have to spiritualize it away and have some funky interpretation of it. It just means you don't understand it and you need to study it out until you do understand it. So this was fascinating. This video has probably taken me, I don't know, 80 hours to make. At least. Maybe not quite that much. It might be close to that. I don't know how many countless hours I've spent racking my head over this, going over this, and not just over this part. So the part that's going to make this video really long, because it's like 16 hours long or somewhere around there, is that I take a 7-day repeating cycle. Sunday through Monday to Saturday to like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and I go all the way through on a Gregorian calendar, just a 7-day repeating cycle. And I start in AD 31 on an extrapolated calendar. Okay, now this calendar, the margin of error over this calendar is supposed to be like 1 day over every 2,350 days or something like that. I don't remember. I have more exact calculations for that, and I'll show it to you in a few minutes here. So there's a slight margin of error. So we're not out by more than a day in AD 31 according to Gregorian calendar. Now that's what the scientists tell us and the mathematicians tell us that calendar's out by. So what I've done is I've taken from AD 31, which is we as Seventh-day Adventists believe that Jesus died in AD 31 because we use the Bible alone to interpret itself, or we're supposed to. Some of us still do, not many people anymore. And when by the Bible alone to interpret itself, we know that Jesus died on the cross in AD 31. That's part of our history. It's what our pioneers believed. It's what Ellen White actually says. And I have a quote for it, which you've seen at the very beginning of this video. So I take a 7-day repeating cycle and I take it up to 1846 because I think 1846 is appropriate for us as Seventh-day Adventists. This is when the Sabbath came into our church. Rachel Oakes was the one that brought it to a few members. It eventually got to Joseph Bates. Joseph Bates spread it. And I'm not sure exactly when Ellen White actually believed that Saturday was a Sabbath, because they believed the seventh day was Saturday. And I have no problems with that. Truth is progressive. And I kept Saturday as a Sabbath, and I believe that God's church is still keeping Saturday as a Sabbath. But I believe right now that God is saying it's time to change. And the same thing that happened then is going to happen now. So 1846, it is right around that time. It might have been 1847, 1846, somewhere in that time period, Ellen White and James White started keeping a seventh-day Sabbath as they believed it, which wasn't from the Bible essentially. It was from the traditions of men is where they actually got it from, but they kind of attributed it to the Bible. And there's good reason for that. But what took me so long to put out this video is I went and I did this whole cycle. I did all this calendar, and I thought, this is great. I have it done. I tried to upload it to the internet, and it failed, and it failed, and it failed. And then I finally figured out, oh, you can only upload like 12 hours at a time. You can't upload the whole 16. So then I was uploading it, and lo and behold, I have a speaker that kind of sits on my ceiling, and it was almost uploaded. And sure enough, the speaker falls off, hits my computer, stops my upload. I'm like, okay, God, what's going on? What else do I have to look at this? And then a thought came to me. Hey, Matt, you've always thought about ChatGPT. Just ask it the question and let it show it for itself, and you'll have a second witness. Even though they're worldly witnesses, it'll still be a second witness. So I went to ChatGPT, thought I'd ask a simple question, and whoa, it didn't have the same answer as timeanddate.com did. But it told me that timeanddate.com was more accurate than itself, and that I should go to it because it wasn't capable of figuring out these things without specifics, like enough specifics to give it the material to do it. And I'm like, oh, well, then I started asking, like I asked it questions and questions and questions. And then I started thinking outside the box. I'm like, let's just forget all these numbers, because I'm like, why does it? Because it kept on coming. ChatGPT came up with all kinds of different answers. It would give me that the new moon was on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday. It gave me a Saturday once. It never gave me a Friday. I don't know if it ever gave me a Thursday. And it might have given me a Sunday, but it was roughly around the ballpark uh, of what timeanddate.com was. Actually, quite a bit of the time it was giving me the Monday, which is what timeanddate.com did as well. But then instead of being on the 12th day of March, it was giving me weird answers like December and February, and then sometimes it'd be like the 28th of March or the 16th of, well, I'm just guessing at some of those dates. I don't remember them now. But it was giving me dates and it wasn't giving me the 12th. I'm like, what gives? What am I getting wrong? So I understood that it needed more precise calculations, and I was giving it as precise calculations as I could. Uh, and it was just fascinating. And then I got the question down to relative simplicity. And with the relative simplicity, it all kind of worked out. And I just thought, but either way, we're supposed to have our faith by the Bible. It's not supposed to be by what some calendar says or what any of those things. But I just did a 7-day repeating cycle. Supposedly, the Gregorian calendar only has that slight margin of error, so we should fall within that. And yeah, so this is that video. Now I'm going to go over with you first some of the things that ChatGPT said to me. I wish I could go over all of it, but that would be another 15 or 20 hours in itself, me asking it questions and then sitting down going, okay, well, it did this funny. And you think that it's supposed to remember everything that it said. And I'd be like, stop using, what is it? Oh, I can't even remember now. It's Zeller's congruence formula or whatever it's called. I forget what it's called. And I'd have to say it like every single time because it just kept on defaulting back to that. And it's pretty amazing how it has defaults, how it's so politically correct. And you can ask it things and it'll give very political answers. Like you'd almost think it was a politician. Because it would start talking to, it would just be, you'd ask it a Bible question because not too many Bible parts that I put in there, and it'd be like everyone's right. I'm like, what? It wouldn't even calculate certain things because it'd be like everyone's right, and you cannot look at that literally in the Bible. I'm like, oh dear, this is so funny. So, anyways, it was a lot of fun, sorta. Let's just say it was definitely interesting, and yeah, I spent weeks doing this video in all my spare moments, and sometimes I just like throw up my hands. I'm like, I don't know what to do now, or ask it, or think about it. I'm like, well, maybe I just have to say, scrap this whole video. And I debated about scrapping this video, but I thought, it's actually probably good that I do the video. Whether people care about the mathematical equations and the 7-day cycle and how it all works, like, yes, we can go and we can try to prove that the Gregorian calendar is wrong and there's a greater margin of error than what they say, or that timeanddate.com is incorrect. Now, I was also in touch with timeanddate.com and trying to ask it questions, but I think they might be having, I don't know, they just like, we can't help you with your research. And I'm like, because I put some things about ChatGPT, and they're like, we can't speak for these other apps and programs or artificial intelligences. Uh, so yeah. So anyways, I was kind of left there. They answered me before when I asked them years ago. I'm like, "Are you sure your calculations are correct?" And they're like, "We are sure." And I used to keep that. I had that email for years, and then I lost it. I don't know, but anyways, that's gone too. So anyways, this is something I hope everyone would do for themselves. You can either just turn a blind eye, or you can just actually see the reality of this. Because anybody who now says, well, you can just take a 7-day repeating cycle and you can take it back to Jesus' time, uh, you can't say that anymore. And if you say that, you're perpetuating a lie if you're saying it's on a Friday, because a 7-day cycle does not bring it back to that time. And we're not to be pathological liars, which is what the definition of that would be, because a pathological liar would be somebody that keeps on lying, knowing that it's the truth, not caring about what it does to them or how people look at them or how it affects others. So we can all be open and honest about this. We can say one of two things: that a 7-day cycle following a Gregorian calendar, as you'll see, will take us back, and that Jesus did not die on a Saturday. I mean, die on a Friday on that time, and so therefore Saturday is not the Sabbath. Or we can say we can't trust math. I've done another thing where I said we can't trust math, where I've taken the missing dollar, I show it how it brings it to God in the Bible, dealing with, I guess it was dealing with the Sabbath and how all those things work out. It's kind of interesting. We also see that in the Bible, math is pretty unique, right? In the Bible, it tells us that 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, that's, what we'd say is 4, is just 1. You find that in John 17. So anyways, I won't talk anymore here. I'm going to take this video and I'll show you what ChatGPT said. And then you can go through, if you so choose, the long, drawn out process, which I got pretty good at in the end. I did a whole whack of it, quite a few hours of it, scrapped it all because I was actually going through, and I was going through the leap years at the same time. And I'm like, forget it. Let's forget about adding all this other stuff in. Let's just do a 7-day repeating cycle, because it would have taken me, it was going to be like 25, 26 hours long. So I'm like, let's just do a 7-day repeating cycle. We're just going to trust that what they say about the Gregorian calendar, how it's only out one day every 2,200 or 300 years or whatever it is. And, that's it. So it was pretty fascinating, pretty neat, pretty confident in what I believe, because I can find it in the Bible, and I don't have to speculate or use anything. I just have to believe the Bible as it's written. And here we have just this calendar really showing it, a 7-day repeating cycle going all the way back, and we can use the faithful witness in the sky, which kind of is referred to, the moon is kind of referred to as that way, the faithful witness in the sky, and we can calculate pretty simply when the new moon was in AD 31, which 14 days later was the Passover.
All right, so here we go. So I'm not on ChatGPT. But these were the things that I got from them, and you can ask questions to get these same answers. So I mentioned about the Zeller's congruence formula. So that was developed in 1882, which was exactly 300 years after the Gregorian calendar got introduced. The problem of finding a day of a given date in a compact, computable form was studied by German mathematician Julius Christian Johannes Zeller, who published an elegant algorithm for the same in 1882. Now this algorithm was named after him as Zeller's congruence formula. I forgot to put that in there. So before this time, they did other different things, and it was a lot harder. And this formula made it easier for people to get a date on the Gregorian calendar. Now, this, I will say, is still not perfect and still has a margin of error because, well, the Gregorian calendar has a margin of error as well. So this formula was introduced, which would correct some errors, and this is where we get a lot of people believing all kinds of different things today. But our pioneers before this time were using different things, and it was harder to come up with an exact date. So when they were looking at Jesus' death on the cross, they didn't have good math to do it. And still today, some things use this formula today, as ChatGPT tried to do with me many, many times. But it would never work out it did not seem to work out with the timeanddate.com. Now, we're going to go and let's just see, most of this is going to come from ChatGPT. I'd seen all this before in Google. You can look it up yourself. So what is the margin of error on the Gregorian calendar? So ChatGPT, this is the answer. The Gregorian calendar, which is the most widely used civil calendar in the world, has a margin of error that accumulates over time due to the way it handles leap years. The Gregorian calendar's length is approximately 365.2425 days per year. However, the actual length of a solar year, known as a tropical year, is approximately 265.24190 days. So there's a slight difference. The difference between the Gregorian calendar and the actual solar calendar is approximately 0.00031 days per year. While this might seem like a small difference, it adds up over time. Over a period of 400 years, this discrepancy amounts to about 0.124 days. To address this issue, the Gregorian calendar introduces the leap year rule. Every year that is exactly divisible by 4 is a leap year, except for the years that are exactly divisible by 100, but not by 400. And that's what gives us our calendar that we have today. So by following this rule, the average length of the Gregorian calendar becomes approximately 265.2425 days, which is very close to the length of the actual solar year. However, even with this rule, the Gregorian calendar still has a margin of error approximately of 0.00031 days per year, which can accumulate over a long period of time. Despite this small discrepancy, the Gregorian calendar is accurate enough for most practical purposes and has been widely adopted as a standard civil calendar worldwide. So then I asked the question, so over a span of 2,000 years, how many days does this margin of error add up to? So it says, over a span of 2,000 years, the margin of error on the Gregorian calendar can be calculated by multiplying the average annual discrepancy by the number of years. So number of years is 2,000, average annual discrepancy, 0.00031 days per year. Margin of error over 2,000 years is roughly equal to, this is a roughly equal to sign, 2,000 years times 0.00031 days per year. A margin of error over 2,000 years is roughly equal to 0.62. So everything's saying roughly equal. So we're going to find out, what kind of numbers we're dealing with here, which is pretty impressive. So over a period of 2,000 years, the margin of Gregorian calendar adds up to approximately 0.62 days. This means the calendar will be roughly 0.62 days ahead of the actual solar year after the 2,000 years. While the difference is relatively small, it does contribute to a need for the occasional adjustment, such as adding or omitting leap seconds to keep the calendar synchronized with astronomical events, because the skies are so accurate. So then because of the things that I ran into at timeanddate.com, it had told me that time and date, it recommended to me timeanddate.com. But then I said, do you recommend timeanddate.com? After it, said I should go there for more accurate information. It says, as an AI language model, I don't have preferences or opinions or endorsements for specific websites or services. Both using timeanddate.com and seeking information for myself have their advantages and limitations. So it had only given me timeanddate.com. It didn't give me NASA, it didn't give me anything else. And then it explains Time and Date. It's a reputable website that provides various tools, including lunar calendars, moon phases, and information. They offer accurate and up-to-date data on new moon times and other astronomical events. But it wouldn't give me to the millisecond for a new moon. They said they're too busy. I wanted milliseconds because everything else I can do in milliseconds, but they wouldn't give it to me because I wanted it to be as accurate as I could, which, makes things, a little not accurate. So the website uses sophisticated algorithms and astronomical calculations to provide precise timings for celestial events, including the new moon. It can also account for various time zones and provide information tailored to specific locations worldwide. This site may offer additional features such as calendars, time conversions, and historical data for further research. And that's what I use it for. I go to the calendars, I go back to AD 31. It's an extrapolated calendar, it just goes back. I don't think it accounts for the margin of error, so I ask ChatGPT to account for the margin of error. Maybe it happens twice, I'm not sure, because I don't know if they do that in the time and date. It doesn't appear to be so that I'd seen. So he also says, as an AI language model, I can provide information based on my training data up to my knowledge cutoff date in September 2021. I do not have real-time access to external data sources like timeanddate.com, which is true. So unfortunately, if it could search the internet now, I could find different things that it can't find for me that it didn't have before. I can answer general questions about lunar cycles, moon phases, astronomical concepts, but my responses might not be as precise or up-to-date information from specialized astronomical websites. While I can provide explanations and calculations for lunar events, it's always best to verify such information with sources for accuracy and up-to-date data. Ultimately, the choice between using timeanddate.com or seeking information from an AI language model depends on the specific requirements of the user. If precise and up-to-date lunar event timings are crucial, which, I'm looking at the, Seventh Day Adventist Church needs to look at that. Is it crucial? It is, because it's a salvational issue for the Seventh Day Adventist Church. And then it says timeanddate.com or other specialized astronomical websites are likely to be more reliable. However, for general knowledge and basic calculations, consulting an AI language model can still provide useful information. So let's look at some of this information that I got so I could use it to ask questions, because it can make math formulas for you and do all kinds of stuff. And I had it doing all kinds of things, but I'm like, you had to be so specific. So a solar year, also known as a tropical year or astronomical year, is the time it takes for the Earth to complete an orbit around the Sun, relative to the vernal equinox. It is approximately 365.2425 days long. Therefore, in a 24-hour period, approximately 0.2425 of a day and a year would be equal to 365 days, 5 hours, 49 minutes, and 12 seconds. So that's how long a day is, or the year is, right? So it's not even half, it's close to a quarter of a day, right? And even takes us right down to the second. So that's interesting for us to know, as things still need to be explained better than what they are. But we're learning, and that's what the process of it is. You don't have all the information instantly. So the length of 12 lunar months is roughly 354 days, 0.36708 days. So that is 8 hours. Hang on. So that is 354 days, which is 8.808 hours, which is 354 days, 8 hours, 48 minutes, and 28.8 seconds. So it takes you right down to less than a second. A lunar year in a solar year is about 374 days, 19 hours, 13 minutes, and 34 seconds, and 231 milliseconds. Right? So that's the length of a lunar year in a solar year. It's pretty amazing how it all kind of works. Now these are averages, right? So this, but that's pretty accurate averages. So the average duration of a synodic month, which is approximately 29.53059 days, or 2,551,442 seconds, is the mean value that serves as a useful reference. However, in the reality, the actual duration of a synodic month can deviate from this average. So a month on average is 29 days, 12 hours, and 44 minutes, and 2.976 seconds. So that's kind of interesting. There's different types of month. There's a draconic month, which I thought was interesting, that there's a dragon month. Then there's a synodic month, and then there's a sidereal month. So a synodic month, which means that each month might actually have a slightly different length, but over the course of the year, it's all going to be working out to the same. And And that's why we can look at a lunar year and have a precise amount of time because it's working out that way. But it's a little different than each month slightly. So the length of a synodic month can vary slightly, with the actual durations ranging from 29.18 days to 29.93 days. This means that there can be a variation between the months of 18 hours, but over the course of the year, this variation uh, evens itself out. I didn't put it all in there. It just works out to being the same. So this is something that we need to understand, because when ChatGPT gives us their answer, they can be in or out roughly within a span of 18 hours. So we're going to see that ChatGPT and the Gregorian calendar didn't quite work, and we're going to see that this is probably what's coming into play, is this little problem right here, that each month can be a little bit different. So if in 8031 it was way on the extreme of the one side, and then in 1846 or in today, which is March 21st, 23, or that's this past year, it could be way over on the other side, and there could be 18 hours difference between the two of them, which will cause a discrepancy. So I asked Time and Date this question, or I asked ChatGPT this question, and I said, timeanddate.com lays out a Gregorian calendar back to 31 AD. They place a new moon day on March 12th, AD 31 in Israel. We know that in Israel on March 12th in 2023 at 7:23 p.m., it was Tuesday in Jerusalem, and the new moon started at that exact time, 12:23. Now, it wasn't 100% exact because I didn't have the seconds or the milliseconds of when that happened, and that's what I was asking timeanddate.com to give me. But they're like, we don't have time for that. I don't know why. It might have taken less time to give me the answer than it did to write that they didn't have time for it. But if they did it, then everybody and their dog might be doing it, and then they'd get swamped. Maybe that's the problem with what's happening now and why they didn't answer me now, whereas they did before. So so this is still my question. I said, now I myself went week by week, making sure that the calendar stayed exactly the same and that they made no mistakes, and it appears to be correct, and that the dates all lined up using a 7-day repeating cycle. Can you generate a formula that will have these same results? So then it gave me a formula, but it missed something, because I'm like, hey, when it was giving me its answer, I knew it missed it, because it often spouts out all the information or most of the information, or at least tells you that it's doing it. So it says, apologies for the oversight. You are correct. I'm misconsidering the margin of error and provide the margin of error. And that was with the Gregorian calendar that we know that it has a margin of error over 2,000 years of roughly half a day. And provided an incorrect date in my previous response. Let me adjust the formula to account for the margin of error, ensure that Monday, March 12th, AD 31 aligns with the new moon day in that month. Now, I asked it to make a formula that would match what timeanddate.com did, because I was doing all kinds of different ways. Now, I just kind of rebuked somebody because he said something that when you do something, you have to have an end result in your mind in order to search the scriptures for it. I'm like, no, you can't have an end result. Like, his idea was, my end result needs that the Sabbath has to be Saturday. I'm like, you can't do that. That's not how you study the Bible. I have no end result. I'm studying the Bible to find truth. But we were talking about Saturday or the seventh day being the Sabbath. And that's what he told me. You need to have the end result in your mind. So I did this here. So that rebuke goes for me too. But I'm like, what will it show me if I say this? Give me a formula to match timeanddate.com. So it's like, okay, here, this is the given information. New moon day in AD 31, Monday, March 12th. Now, I say March, and I have this in the video a little bit later on, because the Passover is always, Ellen White tells us, is always the beginning of March, or sorry, the end of March or the beginning of April. So when you understand the creation account, you know that the new moon is always in March and will never, ever be in April. So we get that from Ellen White. I have it a little bit later on. I don't explain it super well. I don't think I do. Maybe I did. we'll see. You'll see. I'll probably go and see it later too as I'm editing this. Okay, so new moon day, 8031, Monday, March 12th. Desired result, right? They're like, that's the desired result. So we're going to make a formula to match that. Known date, Tuesday, March 21st, 2023, 7:23 p.m. Jerusalem time, right? Because we're trying to find out in Jerusalem. So calculate the number of days between the two dates. So from March 12th to 8031, or 8031 to March 21st, 2023. The difference in years is equal to 2000 minus 31, which is equal to 1992 years. Pretty simple. The difference in days, so 1992 years times 365.24255 days through a year is roughly equal to 727,881.8676 days. Okay, look at the accuracy of this. So now the computer is saying, this is approximately, right? We get these or wherever that approximate sign was. So these are our approximate calculations. Step 2, calculate the number of 7-day cycles within the calculated duration. So number of 7-day cycles is equal to floor. So the floor, I guess, is this number of days divided by 7, which is equal to 103,982 complete cycles. Step number 3, calculate the remaining days after removing completely 7-day cycles. So the remaining days is equal to 727,881.8676 days minus 103,982 times 7, which is roughly equal to, right? It's like roughly equal to 727,881 days, 0.867 days minus 727,874 days, which is roughly equal to 7.8676 days. Step 4, determine the new moon in 8031. So subtract the remaining days from March 21st, 23 at 7:23 p.m. So you take that March 21st at 7:23 p.m. minus that amount of days, which is equal to March 13th, 8031 at approximately 1:08 a.m. Jerusalem time. Now this is still ChatGPT saying this. Now we have calculated the new moon day to be on March 13th, 8031 at approximately 1:08 a.m. However, we wanted the new moon day to be on March 12th, 8031. We need to adjust the formula to move it to one day earlier. So adjust the result to March 12th, 8031, subtract one day from March 13th, and that would be March 12th. Okay, so you're like, well, they just subtracted. Everything else was really good. You're just going over that and going, oh, that's so simple. And then you subtract one day. But, okay, let me just continue reading and then I'll put in what I was going to say. So by considering the margin of error, the new moon day on Monday, March 12th, 8031 can be calculated as follows. New moon day is equal to March 21st, 2023 at 7:23 p.m. So you take these days, minus it by those days, minus one day, which is equal to March 12th, 8031. So it didn't quite do the margin of error with the Gregorian calendar, which puts it ahead a day, right? So it would be ahead part of a day. Let's just be honest with it all. I'm okay with being honest with it all. And it was at, what was the time that it said? 1:08 a.m. So if we did half a day margin of error, we could add 12 hours to it. So that'd be 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 13th. But we also have to remember what I said earlier, where the synodic month could be out 18 hours, which could put it back onto March 12th. So we could be March 12th or March 13th would be the new moon by a 7-day repeating cycle on a Monday or on a Tuesday in AD 31. And then it says, please note this formula involves approximate calculations, right? These are all approximate, 0.8676 days, since it simplifies some of the astronomical complexities. For precise lunar calculations, a more advanced algorithm in astronomical data should be used. And before, that's when it said, go to timeanddate.com, which is so funny. Especially after when I asked it again about timeanddate.com, it's like, I can't say anything about it. Anyways, that's how it goes. So we have now a 7-day repeating cycle from a known date that we have just in our recent past. Uh, and now we're going to see how I do this exact same thing, and I do a 7-day repeating cycle, and I'm just going week by week to make sure that the calendar stays perfectly accurate. And if I make a mistake, you can catch it. But if I make a mistake, the calendar you're going to see is probably still right. What are the chances out of 16 hours where if there was one mistake in the calendar that I just happen to make a mistake at the exact same second? Which is possible. There's always a possibility. But I think we can safe to be said that Jesus' death on the cross did not happen on a Friday in AD 31, based on a 7-day repeating cycle, as long as what they tell us is true about the Gregorian calendar and it only being out by one day. All right, so here we'll go, and I'll start on the Gregorian calendar.
So this is the year AD 31. This is when we as Seventh-day Adventists believe that Jesus was crucified. Now, because the moon, even the Bible tells us, is a faithful witness in the sky. It is so accurate that it is calculated very accurately, and because of modern science today, we have it right down to like milliseconds, how long the cycle of the moon is to give us our new moons. Now, this has a new moon, and it shows when the new moon is. It's not actually giving us conjunction, but when we understand conjunction, and we look at the actual time it is, and everybody should look that up for themselves. I won't show you because people need to understand that the year is started in the Jewish calendar by conjunction, not by visual sighting, because there wasn't a Jewish nation in order to know when the Sabbath was, when the earth was created. It was meant for all mankind, not just the Jews, contrary to popular belief. Now, Seventh-day Adventists know and understand this, so it should be easy for us to realize that it's not about visual sighting in Israel because God made the Sabbath for man, right? And man, like Abraham and them, were keeping the Sabbath, but they weren't in Israel, and it should be a little bit understandable. So, Ellen White tells us that the Passover is always the end of March, so you can have the end of March or the beginning of April. So I'll read to you the two quotes that she says this from. It says, the first of these festivals, the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, occurred in Abib, the first month of the Jewish year, corresponding to the last of March and the beginning of April. The cold winter was past, the latter rain had ended, and all nature enjoyed the freshness and beauty of springtime. The grass was green on the hills and valleys, and wildflowers everywhere brightened the fields. The moon, now approaching full, made the evenings delightful, and it was a season so beautifully pictured by the sacred singer. And that was in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 537.3, paragraph 3. And then we also have this one from Desire of Ages, page 75, paragraph 2. It says, there were 3 annual feasts, the Passover, the Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles, all at which all the men of Israel were commanded to appear before the Lord at Jerusalem. Of these feasts, the Passover was most largely attended. Many were present from all countries where the Jews were scattered. From every part of Palestine, the worshippers came in great numbers and journeyed from Galilee. The journey from Galilee occupied several days, and the travelers united in large companies for companionship and protection. The women and aged men rode upon oxes and asses over the steep and rocky roads. The stronger men and youth journeyed on foot. The time of the Passover corresponded to the close of March or the beginning of April, right? So the close of March or the beginning of April, And the whole land was bright with flowers, and glad with the song of birds. All along the way were spots memorable in the history of Israel. The fathers and mothers recounted to their children the wonders that God had wrought for his people in ages past. They beguiled their journey with song and music. When the last of the towers of Jerusalem came into view, every voice joined in the triumphal strain. So beautiful. But anyways, here she tells us it is always the time of the Passover corresponded to the close of March or the beginning of April, one or the other. So in the mouth of two witnesses, a thing is established. So if we're going to be in the beginning, that means it needs to be before the 15th day if there's 30 days. And if there's 31 days, it needs to be
After the 15th day of the month.
So there's only one way to do that, and that's when you understand the creation account, which most people don't. I'm not going to get into it. But what we're going to look at here is the new moon. So in order to have the Passover, if it was on the 12th, if we count 14 days from the 12th, right? So this is roughly correct. And you count 14 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 days, and you have it on a Sunday.
Now, from what we'd seen, there's a good probability that the Passover could have been on the Monday as well.
So this is what Ellen White tells us and teaches us. Even if she didn't quite understand what she was saying, she says Passover is always in this period. And because it's always in this period, she actually tells us when she tells us that it's by conjunction by that. But anyways, that's fun to figure out. It took me a long time to figure it out. Now, a lot of Seventh-day Adventists will believe that it happened in April because of AD 31, and this is where we run into another problem. Ellen White pretty much tells us through those same two quotes in Patriarchs and Prophets and Desire of Ages that October 22nd, October 22nd is incorrect and would have actually been September. But anyways, that's a whole other thing to chew on. But if you go through her writings, she'll just say they believed, and she'll never say that it was correct. And she'll always just say the fall. But anyways, for people that want to say, well, it can be like, Passover can be in May, because everybody will think April, May, but it'll always be March, April, according to Ellen White. Even if you have it here, the 10th, and then you count over 14 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, then you have it on a Monday. So the only way to have a Friday Passover is in February, and I don't think anyone will believe that if you had it in February on the 10th of February, that 14 days later, that they are harvesting their crops already at that time. You still needed like at least a month-ish before you're able to harvest your crops, because this is still full-blown winter. Now, what I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this is I'm doing it a little quicker way. We're just doing a 7-day repeating cycle. So I go through every month. So from here, this is the beginning. This Thursday, which meant that the month before needed to be Wednesday. So I go Thursday, I see Saturday, and then I know it's Sunday. So I go make sure it's Sunday. And then I go down to Monday, and I make sure that it's Tuesday. And I go all the way through all 2,000 years-ish of this going and making sure that it always is correct and making sure that the 7-day cycle is correct. And I take it all the way down to 1846, and that's when the Sabbath, being Saturday, was introduced into the church that we belong to now, and what ended up becoming the Seventh-day Adventist church through that. Okay, so let's get started. This is the year AD 31, and I'm going to go through it. So for January, we'd have to go back to the year before and see that it was on a Sunday, and then it takes us to a Monday. Now, I'm not going back before the year AD 31 because that's when Jesus was crucified, and that's where I want to come from. And we're going to go Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. We're confirming every time, right? Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday goes to Sunday, Tuesday to Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, right? That's it. December 31st is on a Monday, so that means that January 1st will be on a Tuesday. And we go to January 1st, and it's a Tuesday. And we're going to continue on like this all the way through. So Tuesday, then we go Thursday, Friday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. So we have to go to Thursday next in the year 33. And there's our Thursday. So this is the example. I go through it pretty slow in the beginning. And you see I pick up in the end. And you might find that I make a few mistakes, but the calendar's right there for you to see it. As I get going, I don't make mistakes because it becomes very easy to do, although it's a little hard on the mind, or not on the mind, on the eyes. Uh, there might be the odd one, but it's good for everybody to go through this themselves and to know and to understand that 80-31, it's impossible to be on a Saturday, or Sabbath to be on a Saturday, but the Passover Jesus to be on a Friday, where he was crucified, and 80-31. It could be in the February or in November. That was it, but we know that it wasn't in those days. Okay, continue on with the video. And I hope you enjoy and I hope you do this for yourselves.
I'll also have a bunch of Ellen White quotes at the end that people can go through that kind of explain the situation and the time that we're in right now. So they can look upon that and reflect upon that. That'll be I'm not sure if this is going to be a 2 or 3 part video, but it'll be at the very last, at the very end of one.